Good morning. I'm here at the office, and my foot is healing up for those of you who are paying attention to the pastor's healing process. I've got no complaints at all. We've got folks in our church that don't have feet, and I've got friends scattered around the country who've lost feet and legs, and seen preachers who live in a wheelchair. So anyway, I don't have any grumblings, but since folks have asked, just want you to know things are well for the time being, and if things get where they don't look like they're good on earth, they're still good in heaven. We teach the kids that song, "Everything's all right in my Father's house," and it really is true. Everything is okay, and we can trust Him, and He'll take care of us, and the future is as bright, someone said, as the promises of God. And He knows who we are, where we're going, and He's not going to lose His children. And He may let us go through a few battles for our good, or for the help of someone else, or perhaps just for His glory. Remember old Job? He went through an awful lot just so God could make a point and show the devil that there are people who love Him and serve Him even when things are hard. And the devil certainly did not do that. The devil quit and wanted to do his own thing and exalt his throne above the thrones of the stars of God. And he wanted to be the big shot, and he had a perfect world, but he couldn't serve God. And so when you and I have a chance to serve God in a very imperfect world, perhaps we're that slap in the face to the devil, showing that old, weak and frail men could have enough faith to keep serving God, even if things are difficult. And I'm going to be in Proverbs this morning, and I'm going to start in Proverbs 17, but I'm going to flip around a little bit. But I want to mention a couple things. I got this week. It's an invitation to a pastor's conference, and there's six different pastors going to be preaching, and this is at Clays Mill Road Baptist Church in Lexington, Kentucky, and we've got some of our young people in Bible college there, and so I try to get to visit our kids at their college if there's any way I can do it. So this is a good chance for me to hear a couple days of preaching and get to see our college kids. And going that direction, I get to go to Culver's and get frozen custard, and which is something we don't have out here. But I'm pretty careful where I go and who I get around. I'm 64, been in the ministry 40 years. Actually started in the ministry before that, but here at our church 39 years, and several years before that working at least full-time summers and part-time the rest of the year. And I'm not a rookie at this, but I am smart enough to believe the Bible and to know that Solomon got messed up when he was old. And there's no time in our life when we cannot be influenced for wrong. And so I'll go to a conference like this because the people they're going to have speaking are all people I trust. They're all people that I could relax and listen to and not worry about them trying to nudge me off center. And there's a lot of things in this world that'll get you off. I got my tablet here, and I wanted to just mention I've got, see if I can, I'm not the brightest bulb with technology, but I've got a pretty good string of ebooks and Kindle books. I guess these would all be classed as Kindle books. And then I also have just regular, I'm not sure what you call them, PDF type books. They're different things, not just books. Some of these are documents. But I have a lot of books like that I found online for free that are old Baptist writings, things that I could never afford to buy, but they're free. Somebody sat on a scanner and scanned them and put them in as an ebook, an electronic book. And but you can go through this list of books that I have, and my Kindle books. Behind me, there's obviously some books on the shelf, and I consider my books a lot like I consider friends. They're something I enjoy being around, and something that influences me. And so I'm very guarded, and I pick and choose what gets in my head. Proverbs 23:7 says, as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you get thinking, and gets into your heart, and it soon becomes what you are. And it doesn't matter how old we are. Elijah with a J. Elijah was before Elisha. I remember because J is before S alphabetically. But Elijah had a great ministry, and very, very powerful man. And one of the last things he did was up on Mount Carmel, prayed down rain from heaven and fire from heaven and then rain from heaven, and killed a bunch of the prophets of Baal in the process. And he just got overwhelmed. He just got tired. He got fearful. He got the threats, the political threats on him, or maybe legal threats, whatever term you want to use. But the queen, Jezebel, said, I'm going to kill you. And because somebody up the ladder, politically, legally, had it in for him, whatever the reasoning, we don't know what's in a guy's heart, but he just left. He just took off for the south and traveled days and days, 40 days of travel, got clear down to the southern tip, down to Beersheba, and then he went further yet. And along in there, just discouraged, he met God, and God said, I want you to go anoint Elisha to take your place, and I want you to anoint Jehu as the new king, and several other things. He gave him his last assignments, and he went and did those. And then Elijah traveled with Elisha, and they came along and to the Jordan River, and Elijah parted the Jordan River, went across, and Elijah with him, and then chariots picked up Elijah and took him to heaven, and he was gone. And Elijah took his place. Now, no one could complain about the ministry of Elijah, but he got down, and in his down hour, God gave him a replacement. And but he was older in the ministry. Just because you're older doesn't mean you don't get tired, don't get discouraged. Older sometimes easier to get tired. Sometimes you're never not tired, and you start measuring your ministry in decades, or you start looking at your life where more of your friends are in heaven than are on earth, and your body gets weary, but sometimes your mind gets weary, and you look at those things. But we could get relaxed and complacent in who we get around. But I would just like to encourage you, there's no age stipulations on biblical warnings. It doesn't say be careful of booze until you're 60 and then you can control it. It doesn't say be careful of immorality until you're 55, and after that you don't have to worry about being tempted. There's none of that in the Bible. There are simple warnings of right and wrong. And again, mentioning the books, I look at books as there's a little bit of entertainment. I don't read very often for entertainment, but on occasion I do, and then I have books I enjoy. I just relax. It's just my shut off time. Can't remember the last time I did it, but I do some of that, but not very much. I'm just too busy. But I enjoy books as a companion, as a friend. But most of my books, I on purpose get to influence my thinking, to influence my ministry, to teach me things I don't know about the Bible. I've been reading it every day for 45 years, and it's the greatest book. And I'm learning, and I study, and I'm grasping new truths, and I'm seeing things I've never seen before. And so I want to use, whether it be books or the actual, like a conference I'd go to, or people, friends I hang around. I'm not going to hang around a critic. I'm not going to hang around as somebody who spends their time in slander and ridicule and hurting others. I'm not going to go there. I can't afford it. My life is too short to allow that kind of thing into my head. And so once I find out someone's going to be a critic or have an attitude, I mean, we're all going to accidentally make a comment we shouldn't make. I don't mean that. I mean somebody who they are habitual. And the Eeyores of this world, that they always see the cup half empty, and they always look at it's probably going to rain, and if it doesn't rain, there'll be a drought. I'm not going to get around that. I'm not going to, after the election, I pretty well quit listening to all the news, because I felt like all the news was messed up, even the conservative news. And I thought, I don't need them in my head. And so want to encourage you, even as you get older, don't let down. Samson made some dumb choices along the way, but his biggest mistakes were late in the ministry. He'd been 20 years or more in the ministry when he messed up and had his hair chopped off and lost his power and had his eyes cut out. And David, when he was running for his life, he was fine. When he was settled in as king and had the kingdom established, that's when he got things messed up. And Solomon was old, and so there's no age barrier in these things. So I think all of us ought to be careful as we get older. And again, I'll get to the Bible in a minute, but as we get older, I think we need to be careful about medical advice, because we need doctor. You know, in our youth, you can go years and never see a doctor or a dentist probably. But as you get older, you need advice. We should be very careful. And I can't tell you who to see, but I think you should prayerfully consider who gives you medical advice and think through that thing. And make sure you're getting good advice. And if you have to pay some money to get a second opinion, if you have the money to do it, I think second opinions might be the right thing in some cases. And we ought to be guarded. And I think we as God's people ought to be guarded about giving our opinions. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you people talk to me about COVID vaccinations and all. And I say, you know what, whatever you want to do, that's your business. I'm not a doctor. I've never gotten a flu shot. I don't want anything extra jammed into my body. And unless it's Novocaine when I'm getting my teeth worked on, then I'll take a double shot. But that's just me, and everybody's different. And your body is just a tool for God, and you do the best you can to take care of it. I take care of mine with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and brownies, cookies, ice cream, and I get my vegetable smoothies. But I got to have this balanced life. But I think we ought to try and take care of us a little bit. But I just know this: if it's coming out of the White House, I don't trust it. If it's coming out of any of the main media, I don't trust it. I'm so convinced we're surrounded by an agenda-driven, lying society. But I've got a book that's true and God that'll lead me. And when I get out of this world, I'm going to heaven. What's the problem? Let's go now. But I want to encourage you, be guarded in who you get advice from. As you get older, be careful about legal advice, estates, estate planning, trusts and wills and all that stuff. Get good advice. And you want to talk to me, I'll give you some opinions and some direction, but you'll have to go find professionals in those areas. I had someone this week ask me, dealing with elderly parents who are failing in health and just wanted, how do I look at this? And I gave them, here's plan A, plan B, plan C. You're going to have to figure out what might fit. I said, maybe none of these, but here are 3 ways you could look at this. I might be able to give somebody an idea in regard to whatever situation, but I'm not a professional financial counselor, medical counselor. I'm not a professional counselor. I'm a pastor and a friend. And I'll give you maybe some scripture. I'll give you some my experience over the years, perhaps some wisdom in an area where you've been. But be guarded who is getting in your head and guiding your choices. There's a lot of crooks in this world and a lot of people who would lead you astray. And I think our young people need to hear this as well as our old. Everybody needs to hear this. So that's why I want you to look at with me. The Bible is full of warnings about association. But look at Proverbs 18, verse 1. Through desire, so it's our choice, a man having separated himself seeketh and intermiddleth with all wisdom. So when I have a desire, when I have a longing for wisdom, I will separate myself from a whole bunch of things. And then when I separate myself, then I begin to mingle with all wisdom. And I'm not going to be able to mingle and intermeddle with wisdom until I separate myself from some things. And there's an awful lot of stuff in this world we need to separate ourselves from. And I'm just flipping through, going to show you. Go back to Proverbs chapter 16. Proverbs 16. Now, you've seen my Bibles all marked up, but I color code things, and blue stripes have to do with our companions and who we get around. Better is it to be of a humble spirit, Proverbs 16:19. Better is it to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. Well, there's a pretty good principle to guide my life. I don't want to hang around people that are proud, the boasters, the arrogant. Some of the people you'll see on the news and radio news and conservative, whatever, there's an arrogance. Our professional athletes, our movie stars, and even some of God's people. And so he says, you're better off being with the lowly than with the proud. And just simple statements. Go back over to chapter 14 of Proverbs. Proverbs 14, look down at verse 16. A wise man feareth and departeth from evil, but the fool rageth and is confident. So a wise man is going to have a little fear. A wise man's going to watch and be careful. I don't want to get messed up. I don't want to get in the wrong place. I don't want to get involved in the wrong thing. And so the wise man, it says, will fear and depart from evil. I'm going to, we're starting to go near the edge of something. I'm going to turn around and go back. A lot of the policies, principles, whatever you want to call it, in our ministry over all these years, those principles are simply, let's don't get too close to evil. If we start seeing we're getting near the edge, let's turn around. There's many things I do and don't do that are not a matter of right or wrong. The Bible doesn't say it. They're not right or wrong, true, false. They're just guidelines. They're just safe. If I'm driving down the road and you're driving down the road and you have a seatbelt on and I don't, unless there's an accident, we're both safe. The seatbelt's there for that moment when things go wrong. And so a lot of the principles that I have in my life and in my ministry have been to protect me in that moment when there's a difficulty, or protect those that we love and we serve. And so in Proverbs 14:16, the wise man, he keeps some fear and he's very careful to turn away from evil, but it's a foolish thing to rage and be confident, like, oh, it doesn't matter and I can go and it won't hurt me. And this arrogant, I won't get messed up by this or this. No, that's a stupid way to act. We're all weak. Back over to Proverbs chapter 12. Proverbs 12, he that tilleth his land shall be satisfied with bread. That means a guy that works hard, he'll get food. But he that followeth vain persons is void of understanding. And so again, instruction, we want to be very careful about vain people, people that are empty, people that have no purpose, no depth, no value in their life. And you can go through the book of Proverbs. I'd like to challenge you, read a chapter a day in the book of Proverbs. And you might go through and mark. Now, I've got verses marked for speech, for counsel, for companions, for the family and the home. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 18, 9:18. But he knoweth not that the dead are there and her guests are in the depths of hell. And that's talking about the person who's getting around the wrong, a girl that's not virtuous. And he doesn't realize that the dead are there and her guests are in the depths of hell. Proverbs 9:6, forsake the foolish and live, and go in the way of understanding. Now, you can go through so many verses that talk about our companions, and they're all through the Bible. But Proverbs has got a lot of them, but your New Testament does too. And I was going to show you a verse in 2 Timothy, and I'll close with this. But I want to be useful to God, and I may not be as useful as a guy who's 25 or 35 or 45. But I'm still vertical and I'm still breathing. And I'd like to know that God, if he needed something done, that he felt comfortable reaching down and grabbing me and using me. And so as we look at the scriptures, what is it that makes us usable? Now look at 2 Timothy. It's 2 letters to Timothy, 1st and 2nd. And so 2 Timothy chapter 2. And look at verse 21. I won't go into the whole chapter. But he's been talking about some people in chapter 2. And he says in verse 21, if a man therefore purge himself from these, if you'll purge yourself, there's some people you need to not be around. You cannot be nice and friendly and hang out with everybody and have it not affect you. You can't. It's impossible. So if a man therefore purge himself from these, then it says he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use and prepared unto every good work. And so there are, without worrying about who it is, you can read 2 Timothy there and find out some things. But the principle is, I cannot casually and recklessly just hang out with everybody. I'm just I want to be good to everybody, friendly to everybody, nice to everybody, and I just want to be accepted in all crowds. You can't do that and be useful to God. You just can't. you'll get spiritually dirty or compromised, or something else will go wrong, because who we hang around does affect us. There's no way around it. Who we hang around makes a difference. And I want to encourage you. Now, it's, again, we're talking about people that we're around, but I talk about conferences that I go to. I listen to preaching all the time, and I am so careful what preachers I listen to, and I want to know who they are and what they believe. That's my books, the books you see, the books on my electronic books on my tablet or my Kindle books. I've got a pretty decent library of books. I love to read and study. I'm careful what books I have. And I have some books by people who are not just like me, but I know where we differ theologically is what I'd be speaking about. I know where we differ, and so I'm guarded to not read their take on those things. And I'm careful with those things. When Matthew Henry, not most, but I'd say most preachers and many Christians have Matthew Henry in their library, or maybe on a computer program for the Bible. Matthew Henry's a great writer about Scripture, but he was an Anglican, I think Anglican, but he was a Protestant. We'll make it very broad. He baptized babies, and so that's going to influence. I love Matthew Henry. Get over there to the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts chapter 8, where Philip goes and talks to him, and the Ethiopian man says, here's water. They're going by a lake or something. He says, what doth hinder me to be baptized? And Philip says, if thou believest. And he says, I believe Jesus is the Christ. And this is what the scripture says there in Acts 8. They went down both into the water, and Philip baptized him. Now, if you're a Baptist, you're thinking he baptized him underwater. But here's a Protestant, and he's writing his commentary on Acts, and he says, so they went down to the edge of the water, and Philip no doubt had a cup or a vessel of some kind where he was able to scoop up some water and pour it on the Ethiopian man's head. Well, you know what? That's not what it's talking about. They went down into the water. And so I happen to know that, all right, so there's a couple areas. So I'm careful. And if I don't know an author, I don't read him. And I'm not going to go to a conference and hear a preacher just because he's a preacher. No way. I'm not going to give a guy my head for a couple of hours and no telling what trash he's dumping in my brain. I'm not that smart anyway. I got to be careful what gets into my head. So want to encourage you, the books you read, and we could say television, videos, YouTube, or whatever, the stuff that gets in our head, we should ask ourselves, will this be a risk? Is this a danger? Am I the fool that rages and is confident? Or am I a wise man or prudent man that removes myself from evil? Be guarded about our books, our movies, our music, radio, whatever. And of course, I listen to unsaved people on the radio, whatever. But I'm looking for maybe this bit of news, or maybe they're good at this certain area of political, whatever. I don't have a problem with that. So I like President Trump, but I'm not going to sit and let him teach me the Bible. That's for sure. He was trying, but he didn't have a clue. He's not going to be my pastor, but I was thrilled to have him as my president. And so be guarded about our companions. Proverbs is full of verses, but the whole Bible talks about who you hang around. And where we ended there in 2 Timothy chapter 2, if a man therefore purge himself, there's some people you ought not say, you know what, I can't hang around that lady anymore. She's a gossip. I can't get around that person. They're critical of my church. They might be a great mechanic, but you know what? I'm not going to talk to them. I'll bring my car there, leave it, and I'm leaving. But I'm not going to sit and chat with them while they criticize and slander God and the Bible. And you got to make the call on all this. But our young people, as well as our old people, what we hear, what we see, what we listen to, read, watch, whatever, it's going to influence us. And so we ought to be very guarded that we might present ourselves to God, a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. And Romans 12 says that's our reasonable service. Have a great day. Thanks for taking a few minutes to be together. Hope you'll pray about the weekend, church, soul winning, and all that God's doing and all that we get to be a part of for the Lord Jesus Christ.